Hello, and welcome to Weird, the people, the myths, the artifacts.
Hi.
Hello.
And welcome to another segment of our month of fright, Phobias. I am here today with Crimson and the Queen Mother.
Hi.
And we got some good phobias today. Do you want to start or should I?
You start.
All right. I'm gonna start with something that's a little personal to me. I'm gonna start with specchiophobia and melissophobia, which are surprisingly not the same thing. So specchiophobia, or I really hope I'm pronouncing this right.
That's okay. I have phobias I couldn't pronounce either, so.
They're all hard to pronounce. There's gotta be a fear of saying phobia.
There's actually a fear of extremely long words, and I can't even say that one.
Monstrosquiliophobia. Hippomonstrosquiliophobia. I keep forgetting the hippo.
It's because it's the hippo in the room.
It means horse.
Okay, so what is? Now I got hipposquiliophobia. So what is your phobia?
Well, specchiophobia is the fear of wasps, and melissophobia is the fear of bees.
Huh.
You'd think that they'd be the same thing because they're very similar insects, but no, they each have their own phobia.
Mm-hmm. There's people that are allergic to wasps that aren't allergic to bees, and there's people that are allergic to bees that aren't allergic to wasps. So it's different. It would be different in that aspect.
I personally know of two. We all know of at least one.
Yes.
I personally know of someone that's allergic to bees and allergic to wasps. So I'm just gonna start off by saying that bees actually have. Well, everyone's afraid of wasps because they can sting you multiple times. They can sting you to death. But if you think about these insects in a kind of obscure sense, they are terrifying and creepy in their own right. Well, bees, for the starters, produce honey, which is one of the only things that we get from a product of a living creature rather than an actual living creature that was alive at one point.
Well, milk.
Yes. Well, let's be more specific. It's one of the insects, so you get more insects.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is terrifying in and of its own self because it's like this gooey, delicious thing, and they make it, and we just accept that it was produced by an insect at one point.
Right. It's delicious too.
And if you get more specific, there's a species of bees that literally cooks invading wasps alive through body heat.
That's something I didn't need to know.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Insect world is hardcore. And if you think about wasps in any sort of concept, concept. Sorry, I got a weird mouth.
Your device is disconnected.
Your mouth is disconnected.
A weird, or in any concept, they can be terrifying. They're terrifying because they can sting you multiple times to kill you.
Do you know why they can sting you multiple times?
It's because of the stinger. Bees have ridges in their stingers that get lodged in your skin, so they continue pumping.
Yes.
Their stinger is more smooth.
It's also, wasp can do facial recognition. A wasp can remember you.
Yeah.
Whereas a bee, not so much. And once a bee stings you, the bee is done.
Wait, so that means you get stung by a wasp one time. That wasp remembers you. And then it tells its hive, ooh, this person, don't like it, let's sting it. So every time you run into a wasp, it will sting you because it remembers you from the first time?
Yes.
That is horrible.
Wasps actually have facial recognition abilities.
Which is good because sometimes creatures come back for the hive. So it would instantly allow them to protect their hive from repeat offenders.
Mm-hmm.
There are also wasps that inject eggs into insects called ichneumon wasps,
Mhm.
and those wasps, their larvae eat the insect alive from the inside out.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Kind of like a praying mantis.
I couldn't find anyone in particular who has speciophobia or melissophobia, but I can tell you that if you're allergic or if you've had bad experiences with them, then you probably have that.
Definitely. Or if you know somebody that has like an allergy to a wasp or a bee, you'll get a fear of them as well because, you watch that person's reactions to wasp, like if somebody has a wasp that comes in the house and they're allergic, they're going to run out of the house. So you associate that with the wasp. And so, you'll run out of the house too because you're like, well, if he's running, I'm running.
Yeah,
What about a movie?
I've actually found a couple. All right, so there is a movie where bees are the real bad guys. I'm gonna put it on the screen, but I lost the note. I lost the movie itself, so I'm just gonna call it The Swarm because most insect movies are called The Swarm or The Hive or
Yeah.
whatever. But I'm also going to say Candyman. I watched this movie, and bees are actually a part of it. I don't think he killed anybody with bees. But it's just you're watching an undead guy with a hook with bees swarming out of his chest.
Right. There's been actually quite a few movies where they use bees as the theme, where they come out of their chest, or that they have them. All of a sudden, the bees will swarm a house, and they'll try to get in. I cannot remember the name of the movie for the life of me because as soon as I started talking, I totally went out of my head. But there's been lots of things where the killer bees or
in that series, Grimm's, there's an episode where like the bees are
swarming the house.
They're swarming the house and they're like communicating. So they use this communication and gossip, but then they killed people with their venom.
Yeah.
Like they just got close and went, boom, you're dead.
Not the bees! Not the bees! Yeah. Little bit of Wicker Man for you.
Okay, are you ready for my phobia?
Yeah.
Okay, since you're calling me the queen, I figured this would be a good suiting one for me. But it's Venus Trypophobia, and it is the fear of beautiful women. Now, I couldn't find a specific celebrity that had this fear, but this is like an age-old phobia for any teenage boy, grown man, where it's the fear of talking to women or approaching women that you find extremely beautiful. And you get tachycardic, you get the shivers, shaky legs, sweats. You can even get so afraid of talking to them that it makes you nauseous, dizzy, almost like you're about to pass out and you feel like you're having a heart attack just from seeing a beautiful woman.
I feel like that's every shy person in high school has that fear.
There's even like the popular kids in high school that are afraid to talk to girls or things like that. Like it's been an age-old thing, women, powerful women, beautiful women. It creates a fear.
I think that's actually pretty rational though, because if you think about it, beautiful women can like easily manipulate men. Because some men are just misogynistic. They underestimate women, and B, that we know they're powerful, which is why we spent all of history pushing you guys down.
Yeah, but it's an actual phobia to be afraid to talk to beautiful women.
Huh.
And as far as a movie with it, that you can pretty much watch any romance novel, comedy.
It's a common trope, especially in like anime. Like you see it all the time. the guy like goes up to the girl, can't say a word, or like he's like looking at this girl and like, I'm gonna tell her this, I'm gonna tell her that, and nothing.
Well, horror movies wise, I can think of three that features a woman who's conventionally attractive, who's a bad person. There's Jennifer's Body. I've never seen it, but it's something that I think that the Pale Father would like. It's a raunchy, weird horror comedy.
Sounds like him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say any of the Dracula movies with his Dracula wives.
Mm-hmm.
They're all usually portrayed as beautiful women, just kind of.
There was a movie back in like the 80s, and I don't remember the name of it. But there was a movie where basically this woman would walk down the streets and men were just passing out as she walked by. And it was like, she was like, men don't like me. And so she had a real self-conscious thing because no man would approach her because basically her beauty was knocking them out. And I don't remember the name of the movie because this was back in the 80s. So
sounds like an 80s
I'm going to
movie.
search this movie up and put it on screen right now. Okay, so we're going to do 1, 2, 3, give you a good look at it. And another one would be, conventionally attractive woman, Hocus Pocus.
you got a thing for witches?
No,
I mean, they're kind of, I don't know.
no.
No, but it does. One of the sisters is, she's like super beautiful and can manipulate men because of her beauty.
She's like,
Yeah.
boo. And then they're
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I think it was the blonde one.
The blonde one.
blonde.
Yeah, like
She had multiple boyfriends and
the other
everything.
sisters were like your stereotypical witches, old, over heavily makeup. But that one like could manipulate all the men in town.
Yeah, she'd sing and they'd all just, oh, whatever you want.
Yeah.
So,
Which bring
your next phobia?
my next phobia is a little bit personal because this is one I have. It's one of the 2 phobias I know I have because I have panic attacks when stuff like this happens. And it's a dataphobia. And that is the fear of silence.
Mm.
Which I honestly thought something was wrong with me until I started looking it up. And turns out it's actually pretty common among people of my generation who used to live in a big city where there was like noise every night, or in a big household where you can hear all the laughter and the arguments and
music.
I think that's every parent's phobia.
I think every kid or sibling in like a big family, like, I mean, we only have four, but like, yeah, moved my own house, and all of a sudden I don't have my sister screaming, my brother starting arguments, like.
Well, that's like you guys all say.
Man,
You
it's
guys
too
all
quiet.
say I have a deaf voice, so when mom gets quiet, something's wrong because you're not used to.
No,
You'd
I
rather
just
me
can't.
scream and yell, and then you guys are like, okay, everything's good. But when mom gets really quiet, everybody's like, what's wrong? Well, who did it? Who's in trouble? Who messed up? But I say it's every parent's phobia because when you have young kids and the house gets quiet, that usually means they're into mischief. Kind of
Someone's
like
doing something.
I have a kid that when it got really quiet, the house was either toilet papered with a brand new 36-pack roll of jumbo toilet paper completely strung all over in the span of time it took you to go to one room and back.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. So it's a definite thing that I could see people relating to, but most of it comes from, when you're in a loud house or with a lot of people and then all of a sudden it's quiet, it's unusual and it's weird and you don't like it.
Nope.
Yeah. So it's like sound comforts me because when I hear sound, then I know then no stuff's going on. And it's like, in all the problems I've ever come across, uh, dogs running up on me in the dark, uh, clinging of pans falling down. You hear that before you see that, especially in the dark, which is its own phobia, nyctophobia. You hear before you see, and hearing is like the most important like survival trait for me. Um, because and which is why it's super terrifying when you don't hear anything and you see something in the corner of your eyes moving. You can't pinpoint it. You can only look forward, and you can't hear anything behind you.
That would
Yeah.
definitely be a big
Yeah.
one.
No.
I have two movies that I think would feature sedatophobia, and they're and they both feature deaf people.
There's actually an entire movie. It's a horror movie
The
about
birds
silence.
or something.
No, it's not the birds. It's Bird Box.
Bird Box.
No,
And
they have to they have to cover their eyes.
no, they can't say
They
a
can't
word.
say a word or anything, and they can't see anything. So you have to be completely. It's like the whole movie is complete silence.
Because if you say something or sound happens, like a clang of like the pen or whatever, bad things
I'm
happen.
pretty sure it's Bird Box.
Yeah, it was that one with that famous actress.
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
So my two movies are The Quiet Place, because even though the monsters make noises, you have to be quiet, and hearing a sound is death, but silence is worse because you can't even alert people. So it could just be showing up any moment, and you'd have no warning. And Hush, which is about a deaf woman fighting a slasher killer in her house.
Huh.
And most of the movies from her perspective, so most of the movies quiet, and I don't think they use a score. It's been a while since I watched this movie, and so that's my pick for sedatophobia.
You know what? It's not Bird Box. It's A Quiet Place.
Oh,
That's what it was. Bird Box. He is right. Bird Box is the one where they have to be blind. They can't see the thing. If they look at it, then it like kills them or gives them nightmares or makes them do something weird. But Quiet Place is the one where the family's in the cabin and they have to be real quiet and not make any noise.
I think any movie where you lose a sense is automatically terrifying.
It is terrifying. So
Scary to
my next
watch.
one is trypophobia, which is a fear of holes. So there is a celebrity that has this, and it's Kendall Jenner. And I couldn't think of a movie that they did or anything, but can you imagine having a fear of holes? Because you have holes on your body, you have holes in your food, you have holes. But to have a fear of holes, and some of the movies that were listed for this one were like Conehead, because they do their big old mouth and make a hole. There was an anime, and I can't pronounce the name of it, but basically the villain, he was just opened up his thing and he's got holes, big giant holes. But if you think about it, there's holes everywhere. So to have a fear of that, you would literally like have to be in a box.
A hat has a hole.
There was a short film, Trypophobia, and it was very gross to me because tiny holes started appearing all over the body, and it was super gross to me, and I was like, what's going on? And then I looked up trypophobia, and I just kept seeing pictures of these kind of gross clusters where they're blowing up images of species of fungus, of uh, termite holes, of pores, and
Well, it makes me think of the superstition when you guys are kids about don't step on a crack, break your mother's back.
Yeah, I didn't step
But-
on a crack for like months.
There's holes everywhere, so you would have to be like watching where you step because you have this fear of holes, and there's holes in cement, and there's holes in the wall, and there's holes everywhere. So it was like you can't literally go anywhere or do anything because everything has holes. Your mouth has a hole, your ear has a hole, you have eye holes, you have. So that would be a hard one to live with, I think.
That'd be horrible.
And then movies I found, of course, there's the movie Holes, where they're digging holes. But there were several other ones, like even like horror movies. I Know What You Did Last Summer. The thing has about holes, and another associate for tryptophobia is bumps or irregularities. So like anything that has like acne or there's ones where they have like the illnesses where they get blistery and stuff. And so that would be another trigger for you because of the fact that eventually that's going to pop and there's going to be a hole.
ugh. Yeah,
I don't understand. That's horrible.
irregular holes on the skin or irregularities on the skin is like immediately, this person's sick, let's run the other direction.
Right?
That'd be hard to
So
live
it
with.
would be, you can't even go shopping at the mall because if you run across somebody that has, a pimple, you're like, and running out the door. So I think that would be a really tough one to live with.
Yeah. All right. So, as some people have noted on today's date, or the date that I'm posting this video, it's gonna be Friday the 13th. And, of course, the movie that's gonna come up.
No idea.
But, so we're gonna do triskaidekaphobia. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about frigatriskaidekaphobia, which is fear of Friday the 13th. This one also has a different name called Paraskaviatriskaidekaphobia. And
Say that 13 times.
No.
Fast.
So fear of numbers is actually pretty common. It's more of a cultural thing than the personal fear, though some people do have it, like President Roosevelt or Theodore Roosevelt.
Mhm.
And what was Stephen King?
Stephen King did, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, we didn't really start using it until the term came up in abnormal psychology by this psychologist Isidore Crow. Hold on, let me bring up my notes.
See? Bunch of weird names.
All right, I lost the page that had this particular phobia's notes on, so I'm sorry, but this is gonna be a little choppier than the other ones. So triskaidekaphobia.
There was actually quite a bit that you can find on that. It's actually a real common thing for people to have a fear of the number 13 or Friday the 13th, to be more specific.
Isn't there like a superstition when building buildings that they
Yes.
don't have the number 13?
There
Like
is
a level
there is a
13?
taboo thing on buildings and ships where if they go above 13 levels,
They skip 13 and go to 14.
yeah. So so there are several origins for unlucky 13. Surprisingly enough, despite several people saying that Friday the 13th came from the fear of Friday the 13th came from the Templars, people getting outed. I couldn't actually find any reputable sources that say that on Friday, say that the fear of Friday the 13th came from King Louis killing all the Templars on Friday the 13th, October Friday the 13th. So several hundred years to the day.
Yeah, that would be a hard one to track down.
Yeah, I mean, information changes and loses as time goes by.
So, of course, your first movie for Friday the 13th is going to be
Friday the 13th. So here,
1, 2, 3.
there's 500,000. Plus, they got rebooted.
Yeah.
What, seriously?
Yeah,
Is the movie that good?
the new movies are gross.
Okay.
So the origins for Friday the 13th are not. You gave me confused. The origins for triskaidekaphobia are little vague. History were kind of confused, but I found two, and one is in tarot cards. The 13th card usually is death, which has a little dichotomy of its own. Which triskaidekaphobia also has a dichotomy. I'll get into that later. So the 13th card is death, and death is, from the layman's point, very terrifying.
Yeah, scary.
But if you consider the actual meaning as being great change, which you don't know the future, something's gonna change in your life, and you're already comfortable. That idea is terrifying. That's like finding out one day that you're gonna be forced to be evicted. We know what that feels like. We know how lost we felt.
That'd be horrible.
And another one is a common saying where the 13th person at a table will die within a year. So
that must be why we have 12 puppies instead of 13.
Yeah, we had 13 puppies, remember, but one didn't make it.
Actually, yeah, you're right. One didn't make it. Okay, now I'm a little freaked out.
Yeah, I'm good.
Hold on, before you start succumbing to triskaidekaphobia, we have to get worse before we get better.
This is mean.
So the British submarine HMS K-13 sank on the 29th of January, and it was, and because of that, the 13. Because of that, number 13 wasn't used in any submarine, or any of the submarine series later. And so, my brain isn't braining. Which makes sense, because navies are superstitious. There's new superstitions about knots, superstitions about women on ships, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we have in space the Apollo 13, which was launched on April 11th, but because of an oxygen tank explosion on April 13th, it failed. But luckily, it returned to Earth safely on April 17th.
13 just seems like an unlucky number.
It's also a baker's dozen.
There was also...
It is good, but I don't know. This is weird.
That's why they say baker's dozen instead of 13.
I just don't like odd numbers in general, so...
Also, in a little bit more modern thing, October 13th, 1989, there was a mini crash of the stock market, which caused a small depression.
The spirit seems rational to me. 13 seems unlucky.
However, there is other things that aren't so unlucky. There in 1881, there was a semi-famous club led by U.S. Civil War veteran Captain William Fowler called the 13th Club. So they met on January 13th, 1881 at 8:13.
That's a lot of 13s.
I'm not even through yet. with 13 people sat down to dine on room 13 of the venue. They ate a bunch of 13 foods. It was 13 everywhere.
Were they feeling lucky?
Like, why?
I will get to the luck. But just clubs like this often sprang up over the next 4 to 5 years, and they included 5 future U.S. presidents, which including Chester A. Arthur and Theodore Roosevelt. Wait, I wrote Theodore Roosevelt as being the person that has tryptophobia. No, that was his Franklin D. Roosevelt. My bad.
You're confusing my facts.
I'm trying not to.
Me.
So, lucky. There is a also a kind of complete opposite of that. 13 was considered lucky in some part of the world. So that should assuage some of your triskaidekaphobia.
I hope so.
So it was considered before the First World War. It was considered lucky in France, and in modern days, it's considered lucky in Italy, and in Hong Kong and Macau, it's considered lucky because it reminds them of the term Cantonese term meaning sure to live, which is complete opposite of why they think 4 is unlucky, which is taurophobia, and that's the fear of 4, and they think that it means to die. And 13 is also considered lucky by Taylor Swift.
Well, that don't say much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she made use of the term 13, and she uses it as her lucky number. That being said, if you're still afraid of the number 13, then I have something to tell you. Steve Buscemi, who we all know is a famous actor, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, and the guitarist for the Monkees,
The Monkees!
which
Wait.
Crimson loves.
Oh my gosh. It's, I know this one. No, I don't. Which one was it again?
Peter Tork
Oh, Peter!
were
Okay.
all born on the 13th.
Okay, that's a
So
good
was
number
P.
then.
Diddy.
That's a good number now. He was born then. Yeah, born
Friday the 13th.
then. Lucky number.
All right.
So that brings me to my third phobia, which is kind of relating to yours in a way because it's selenophobia, which is an irrational fear of the moon. So a lot of people have intense feelings when it comes to the moon and the moon cycles and you know how
That's where we get the
It
term
affects-
lunatic.
it's also known as lunophobia. But it's a big thing for some people because they don't like when the moon is full, they'll stay inside, lock the doors, everything because of fear. Not necessarily werewolves.
Not necessarily werewolves.
But it's people act irrational when it's a full moon out.
Well, wouldn't it make sense if the moon affects the tides? So if you live on a coastal area or near a beach or whatever, wouldn't it make sense to be afraid of the moon because it affects the tides?
There's been a lot of things about the fact that the moon affects the tides, it affects the atmospheric, and it makes people act irrational. But there are people that have a legit fear of the moon, and in searching for information on this, I found a short video, and it was the craziest video. It was only a 6-minute long thing, but it's actually called selenophobia, and it's this girl. You see her, she's sitting there in bed sleeping, and then it flashes to the same girl in the forest looking at herself, like on the back of herself. And then she wakes up in the bed and sees the moon and all kinds of things. And there's a guy in the video and he's trying to kill her and he's chasing her down and she's all of a sudden has a bandage and then she has a bunch of cuts on her arms and it was crazy. I was like, what is the purpose of there's no talking. It's just different flashes of views.
That's
and it has
crazy.
to do with the moon, making them act irrational and crazy.
That's like a fever dream.
Yeah, it was pretty. I was like, I can't believe I spent 6 minutes watching it, but
Yeah.
I was committed to finding some things for you.
Um.
But another thing about selenophobia that I found that was interesting was it was actually featured on Jeopardy as one of the questions, like, what is selenophobia? And the contestant Michelle answered, fear of Mexican musicians.
What?
Referring to Selena Gomez. And I thought that was hilarious. And so as I'm trying to find more information about this, because I wanted to do this in conjunction with your Friday the 13th thing, it was like, I just kept getting this. It was hilarious because selenophobia was being related to being afraid of Selena Gomez. And I just found that extremely hilarious. So all of the information that I was finding at first, I couldn't find anymore because all I was finding was how a contestant on Jeopardy thought it was Selena Gomez.
Well, is there a fear of Selena Gomez called Celine something? I mean,
That I did not find.
I'm sorry, but I don't think so.
I'm just saying. I mean,
Yeah. You could do. There is a couple movies where the moon is like. Not on top of that, there was a game. Gosh, I think it's Legend of Zelda or something, where the moon was an
Mhm.
actual bad guy.
There's actually quite a few movies about the moon and people being afraid and the moon crashing into Earth. That is a big one.
not to mention
Um,
werewolves.
The unknown about there's a mysterious section of the moon that we haven't been able to see. And of course you got Armstrong and his grand step on the moon.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to share that one because it happens to go with your Friday the
Because-
13th theme. And it also deals with the fear of Halloween.
People are scared of Halloween.
There is an actual phobia for the fear of Halloween.
Samhainophobia.
Yep, and it deals with a lot of different phobias, like the fear of ghouls, the fear of the dead,
Fear of
necrophilia,
blood.
fear of blood. There's a whole cluster, but there's actually a thing about the fear of Halloween.
Wow.
So spooky season is not fun for them.
No.
They probably don't enjoy getting that candy either.
Well, I believe that we have just said our 3 phobias each.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for joining us today on our video, and while we delve into the fears of the world. So, as a parting note, I will tell you that tomorrow should be an eclipse. So, for those of you with cosmicophobia, which is a fear of cosmic phenomenons like eclipses and supernovas and auroral lights, then you should probably stay inside tomorrow
Also, those with selenophobia.
and tonight. Alrighty then.
Bye.
Goodbye.